at a point in our survey of third-person controllers where I think it's just about time to talk about the big three. We've gone over a couple of the smaller ones and some in depth and what have you, the ups and downs of those, but there are three major players in the Unity asset store for third-person controllers. And you can tell that they're the ones marked top rated when you just search for a third-person controller. These have all been around for a very long time, so that's one of the reasons. But they're all fairly well done and have a lot of features and flexibility. They do have strong differences, of course, in not just the price, and some similarities. So first, I think we'll talk about them from the outside. As you can see, I only have two of them. I do have the older version of the third-person controller before they did a complete rewrite, so I don't know exactly what the difference, how much of a difference it makes. I haven't pulled the trigger on the upgrade pricing for that one yet. So all three of them have differences, like I said, and one is obviously the price, but we'll start with one of the biggest differences. The UDI third-person motion controller for 65 is just handling locomotion aspects, walk, run, jump, vaulting over things, kind of like over here you see the Invector basic locomotion pack for $35. That's I guess comparable in feature set. It doesn't have the UDI one at 65 does not have shooting guns or melee or bows or any of that stuff. The Invector one at 75, the shooter template here, comes with the shooter part for guns, also the melee combat one here, which you can see is 55, and I'm pretty sure if you buy the melee one you can upgrade for the difference, the $20 to the shooter template. And the locomotion all wrapped into one system. And then the OPSIV third-person controller comes with the locomotion, guns, and melee all wrapped in for $95. However, they all do add-ons. So they all have a system in place where you can extend it with additional functionality, like you can see here on the page, the Invector third-person swimming add-on for $15. So this one, the shooter template here, does not come with the abilities and animations to do swimming. I'm not sure about the OPSIV one, but UDI is the same way. In fact, so we'll look at the Invector publisher page here, and we can see that they've got the third-person templates, and then they have a few add-ons: swimming, free climb, building, footstep system, zip lines, stealth kill, and then they have a couple of other packs that are not specifically related to third-person motion. So they have their abilities separated out into small additional packs. Similarly, if we look at UDI, they've got the third-person motion controller, archery motion pack, sword and shield motion pack, spell casting, swimming, shooter, all separate abilities. And you can see I have a few of these, pretty much everything except for the shooter for Udi. And the bone things like this, the bone controller, easy input, camera controller, dispatcher, mount points aren't directly, they're not like part of the third person system, although in the case of Udi and even in the Infector stuff, it all of course integrates seamlessly together since it's all from the same publisher, so that's nice. And then if we take a look at the Opsiv page, same type of deal. Oh yeah, so here they do have swimming separately. And here's the vaulting over things movement pack. They've got a multiplayer add-on and a VR add-on. So I think more of the base, shooting, melee, etc., are packed into the main controller, the third-person controller here, which they have a whole bunch of different versions. In the case of Opsiv, as you can see, they've got a first-person shooter. Then there's the ultimate character controller that combines both first-person and third-person, which can be handy. And then they have other separate versions, I guess, if you don't need all of those features. And then the other big thing that they have is the behavior designer, which Invector also has an AI solution. Udi does not do their own AI solution, but Opsiv and Invector do their own AI solution. I believe Udi, however, has integrations with the other AI solutions, so you can control the motion controller via AI. So, the big three all do similar things. They're all third-person motion controllers. They all break out into extra packs that you have to get if you want specific abilities. And they all act as a framework for adding the additional abilities. So the thing is that, like the swimming pack, I'm assuming this for Opsiv. Maybe I'll talk about Udi since I know a little bit more about that. So even though you have to, or there's this archery pack, you don't have to get it. So say you want archery, this archery pack is just building in extra motions, animations, and things into this framework. You can add your own, if you have your own archery animations, your own system for dealing archery damage, doing whatever with shooting and whatever, you can build that all into this core framework. So these are all just time saver things. Same with swimming, and that's true for Invector as well, and I'm assuming it's true for Opsiv. You just it's the author who is obviously the most familiar with their core system, taking the time to build these extra abilities in, and then so that they can sell them in packs for additional revenue and of course time saving for the end users. So it's kind of a win-win in that scenario. But all you really need is the core system, then understand that system, and you too can develop your own packs. And I suppose there's nothing stopping you if you wanted to sell your own packs on the asset store as well. That contained your own animation, the code, and just hooked in. Then I think that would be perfectly legitimate. I'm fairly certain that happens in the Invector space a lot often, way more than any of the others, actually. I think if I would search for Invector, for example, yeah, you can see here we've got Evil A's RPG pack for Invector. There's Bullet Time. There's people, a few third-party add-ons for that system. I don't really think that there are any for Udi, at least not on the asset store. Udi actually has their own website where they have a few free add-on packs, and I'm not sure about Opsiv. I don't think that there's a lot of third-party stuff for it. There's a save system by Pixel Crushers for Opsiv character controllers, so there's a little bit of it. But not a whole lot of that going on, although it is totally possible to do. You could even make your own swimming pack and compete with theirs. So talking about the top 3 perspective a little bit more, Invector, I think, is actually the relative newcomer to this game, being only 3 or 4 years old, I think. And both Udi and Opsiv have been around for a very long time. I'm pretty sure that Udi third-person motion controller has been out / in development since 2012, 2013, and the Opsiv one is probably similar. So they've got a lot of experience working on these things. And without diving deep just yet, I can tell you just from looking at them that the Invector one is pretty good, but it's actually more on the homegrown side of things, I guess is a way to describe it. So the Udi one is very professional, I guess you would call it. It follows it, when I look at the code, I can tell that the author of Udi motion controller has very strong coding skills. Probably comes from an enterprise or old school object-oriented programming background. Uses C# features to the fullest, namespaces, interfaces, delegates, builds all these systems, puts a lot of thought into how everything works together, and really knows what he's doing. It's one of the reasons I really like this one too. Even though I think that because of that, he is the author is what you would call a hardcore programmer, and so I would say out of these 3, even though the motion controller isn't what you would exactly say to be not user-friendly, it's probably the least user-friendly, like for non-coders. If you don't know programming, the motion controller is going to be the most difficult, but only if you want to step outside of what he's already created. So if you buy all of his packs and those are the features that you need, and that's good enough, you know, like if you're doing melee combat and sword and shield is all you need, you don't need to be able to add additional things for like a staff or a spear or something like that, or, you know, twin daggers or pistols. Well, he's got a shooter thing for pistols, but if you don't need to add any of that stuff and customize it outside of what he's built, it's fine. It doesn't matter if you know coding. There's plenty of documentation and it's easy to set up. But to get the most benefit out of really any of these 3, you're going to need to be able to customize it, and you're going to need to know some coding. The Opsiv one from the previous version, and I think just from looking at the documentation, I would say is similar I think he is also probably a hardcore programmer, but I think that there's been there might be a little bit of more of an advantage maybe when he rewrote it to make it friendlier, a bit friendlier to people with no coding experience. And then the Invector controller is probably the most friendly towards people with no coding experience, I think. Um, it's definitely less. The code is less on the hardcore programming side of things. When you look at it, it's you would probably call this person a self-taught programmer, which maybe everybody's self-taught, but hasn't come from professional team-based origins where and this is all just my guess, but the code isn't quite as clean, I guess, as the other two. And the documentation, while good, is not as good as the other two. But but I think that the end result is that because the developer in Vector is not like a hardcore programmer, that they end up being, they're still a very skilled programmer, and they end up being closer to closer to being able to relate to those who don't know how to program or aren't hardcore programmers, and therefore they can make their systems a little bit more approachable from that standpoint. So, all three of these, obviously, because they're the top three, they're all three very good, and they do have ups and downs, and there's so many little nuances and factors, like how comfortable are you as a programmer versus not, and how much do you want to the Vector one is also kind of the cheapest, because even though it's $75 more than the Udi one, like I said, this $75 comes with the melee combat and the shooting abilities, whereas each of the add-on packs are about $20 for the third person for the Udi one. So if you were to add in all of the things that Udi all of the expansions that Udi has, really you'd be looking at like $150 or something. And even if you add third person controller with swimming and a few of the other things, you're going to get up to a little less, and maybe only $110 or something. And then the Opsiv one also, it's a little bit sort of cheaper in that respect. The add-on packs for the Udi ones, however, are probably more involved. Again, I'm less knowledgeable about the Opsiv ones add-ons, but they have swimming and vaulting. I don't think there's a lot of huge systems involved with that, but with the Udi add-ons, like for archery, it comes with adding in a whole system for inventory and shooting bows with physics, and equipping things, unequipping them, some bow models, that sort of thing, which I think the Opsiv one, so the Opsiv one and the Invector one also come with that sort of stuff too, so there you go. So the the opposite one and the Vector one both come with the health system and dealing damage and all that, because they come with the weapons. So this one, again, the third-person motion controller from Udi, is just the locomotion part, and when you start adding in the sword and shield, then you add in melee combat, so you have to have health, and you have to have inventory, so you can have your sword and shield equipped, and that sort of thing. When you add the guns pack, it adds things for reloading and a cover system and all that sort of thing, and archery, and the spells actually, I think, might be one of the biggest differences on the Udi side. For one, and the other ones don't really have like a spell system even to add as an add-on. This one does, and it comes with a pretty cool and unique node-based, like a visual coding node-based spell system for building spells. Let me see if I can show you a picture of that one. Yeah, so the spellcasting motion pack has this whole editor for creating spells. That's all kind of visually sequencing what happens, whether you're creating particles, and all the playing animations, all the different stages of that. So that is kind of a unique functionality of the Udi one. But again, it's an additional $20 add-on to the pack. So I think it's time to go into the big three, and because they are the big three, they're going to take significant time to go through each one, because they're packed with a lot of features and things to do. And I think that I am going to start with the Udi one, because really, honestly, I'm a little biased. I really like the Udi one. And so I may end up diving into that for a long time. If for some reason, or if you want me to shift gears and take a look at the Invector one, or think about buying the Opsive one and take a look at that one, because you'd really like to see some in-depth usage of those, let me know in the comments and we will do that. But otherwise, I am going to go down the path of Udi. We'll really look at the systems. I have, like I said, I have everything pretty much except for the shooter part, although for my purposes with the Heretic 2 idea, I don't need the guns. And yeah, so I'm going to go down that road, talk about all these Udi packages in more detail in the coming videos. Please like and subscribe and all that fun stuff.